tight, but we can do that.
Hello.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it. So actually, the point of that is I trust that the lease you're developing with them is less ends prior to the termination of your lease on December 31st, 2027.
We've decided to do it on an annual basis.
Perfect, perfect.
And it does need to be approved by my board of directors, which hasn't happened yet.
Okay. All right. Rod, any questions or comments from you?
I have nothing.
Then, Terry, I assume we would need this in a form of a motion and a vote.
Yes.
So
I'll move that we authorize the Civic Beautification Association to amend their lease to allow for a sublease to, tell me the name of the group again.
Fall Steering Committee.
The Shelburne Fall Steering Committee.
I'll second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll put the matter to a vote. Andrew?
Aye.
Rod?
Aye.
And I am aye. Motion passes 3-0-0. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. New business. We have while we wait for Cheryl, transfer station, winter hours.
Typically during the winter, starting December 1st, we've been closing the transfer station at 4 p.m. But our new operator, Bailey, has offered to keep it open until 7 p.m. if the select board are comfortable with continuing what once was the hours of operation.
Do you recall why they got reduced back from 7 to 4? Was it just darkness or?
It was because Mr. Giard only wanted to work until 4 and Joe Fink was subbing, and we couldn't loan him during the winter months
Okay.
to operate from 4 to 7.
And the location has adequate lighting to keep
Yes.
it. I think it's dark by 4:30 at some points in the winter hour
Yes, it
Yes.
does.
time period. Any questions or comments from Rod?
I have nothing.
Andrew?
Just curious, Terry, if you know anything about our past usage, did people use it in the dark time?
Yes, in fact, people are already asking with the new attendant whether the former hours will come back. So that's why he brought it forth.
I'm in favor as long as people are using it. Yeah.
Put that in the form of a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we extend the winter hours to their former schedule, which was starting when?
10 a.m. to 7.
10 a.m. to 7 on Tuesdays, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, there it is.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, put the matter to a vote. Andrew?
Aye.
And Rod?
Aye.
I am aye. Motion passes 3-0-0.
Rick, I just wanted to let Ted Hanna know that the appointment has already happened and everything went. The motion was approved to sublet to your organization.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
All righty.
Perfect. Thanks. Good move, Terry.
Can I just make a
Oh.
mention that people are having a hard time getting on tonight?
I heard that initially, but now everything seems to be working fine.
Joe Ray has been trying to get on and he can't get on.
Hmm.
It's not working.
What's not working? You're on.
I couldn't know because Joe Judd gave me the Zoom address. I can't get on through the website.
Oh, the town website.
Yep.
To link to it from there.
I can't. I go to the town website and I get you've got an incorrect address or something like that.
Website is so old, it's a nightmare.
So I guess, Rod, you could tell Joe that he could use the meeting ID number to get in, which is at the top of the agenda.
I will do that. I'll take a picture of it and send it to him.
Terrific. We're just a few minutes away from our appointment with Cheryl, and she's not joined us as yet. Would you like to proceed with the any other business or jump down to correspondence? Andrew, I'll leave that to your decision.
You can go to correspondence.
Okay. Under correspondence, we have received a communication from the resident, Rita Jaros, of concern that with the Sweetheart Pub and Brew being opened or having reopened, that people are walking up from the village using the sidewalk as you walk from Bridge Street up towards the Sweetheart. This would be the right-hand side. That sidewalk ends just beyond her property, and people are crossing the road there where it's pretty close to traffic coming around the corner off of Route 2. There's no crosswalk there. She's suggesting that we look at pushing that sidewalk all the way up. The interesting thing to me is, however, if let's say we had a crosswalk at Rita's and they went over to the crosswalk on the other side, that crosswalk ends at a driveway, and people would have to then walk on the edge of the road to continue towards the parking lot on the other side of the road from the Sweetheart to where there is an actual crosswalk right now. So it's kind of a rock and a hard spot question there of how to deal with it. Any thoughts from either of you that have read this and thought about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think unless there are ways that we can just do crosswalk markings that will address her concern, which I don't think is the case, then it will be difficult to make that happen quickly, particularly since we just repaved that section of road. But we can certainly, look into that in terms of where it fits on the list of priorities for road projects, road and sidewalk projects, and see how we might be able to address it as we go forward. But I don't even if this was our top priority, it would take a while to put together a sidewalk project, given that construction work is about to end for the season. So I would just say it's going to take a while, but I'll certainly go up there and take a look at it.
Okay. And as a liaison to the highway department, bring it forward to them for
Yeah.
as well. I believe Joe Ray has joined us. Joe, are you there?
Yes, I just got on.
And are you joining us with regard to that communication on the sidewalk or something else?
Yeah, I was just wondering what was going on with it. I know I had brought that to your attention before, and I was just wondering where we were at.
Okay. Well, this was brought to us by Rita Jaros about concerned people driving. I don't think you were on. People walking up the sidewalk about to her house where that sidewalk ends, crossing over to the sidewalk on the opposite side of the road, worried about fast-moving cars that have just come off the highway around that corner, and suggested that we look into pushing the sidewalk on her side of the street all the way up to your place. You and I had spoken a year or so ago, when I was looking at it saying, why isn't this sidewalk on the opposite side of Rita's pushed that last, I don't know how long it was. I've forgotten, Joe, maybe you do, but maybe 50 feet more to get to your open parking lot where there then is access to a more highly visible crosswalk over to your facility. But it involved retaining walls and permission from the landowner. And that's as far as it ever went. So, Andrew, Andrew is going to look into this and see what the options are. I don't know if we have the right to put a crosswalk on a street that we choose to, or that we don't have that right. So that's something I think, Andrew, that you should look at. Now, that is Route 2A, so maybe the state would come into play there too, but you know, a quick solution, if it's possible, might be to just put another crosswalk with a sign approaching. Her concern is the people coming off Route 2, put a sign that those folks would see, slow crosswalk ahead or something. But dig into it, find out what you can figure out.
Yeah, I know that sidewalk, the crosswalk had been there for over 50 years that I can remember in the past. And as far as an extension on the sidewalk, it is the gateway to the town. It should be something done, but I knew with the road project coming to an end, we were a little late on getting on that. So I was just listening tonight to see what the concerns were and what was going on.
Okay.
Well, Joe, I'd be happy to take a look at it with you if you have time, if you want to share your thoughts with the highway superintendent. That, you know, I mean, look, it seems like painted crosswalks and extending one side or the other side are really the questions at hand. And so which one makes the most sense is kind of, you know, what we have to work out.
Yeah, and you could always just throw one of those flashing lights when people are actually crossing the sidewalk. It's actually flashing right at the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Those are solar powered, probably a simpler temporary solution.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Well, we'll certainly take a look at all of those and let you know.
Great.
Yep.
Super.
Okay.
So we will acknowledge the receipt of that, and that we have discussed it and digging deeper into it to find out what we can or can't do with it being a Route 2A as opposed to a complete town street. If that's a factor and what the options are, and we'll get to it as soon as we can get some more information.
Yep.
Speaking of that, Terry, do you have any input on that in terms of who we might contact at the state, or what the intersection is between the state and the town in regard to crosswalks and sidewalks and things like that?
That would definitely be a question for Jeff. I mean, I have a state contact list, but Jeff would be able to tell you who he works with. If you recall, they just recently repaved that street as part of a state project. So I'm sure he has contact information.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll follow up on that. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Super. Okay, we are up to 5:59. That's pretty close. I see Cheryl has joined us along with Willow. And we will turn the floor over to you, Cheryl. Your request was to discuss the 2D 8T building and use discussion. We have our finance committee on as well with us. So the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Great. Thank you for having us. We're a bit of a smaller group than usual. Martha is traveling back from vacation abroad, so you are stuck with yours truly. We have been, as Phase 3 opens for 2D 8T sustainability, we have been coming around to all of the select board and finance committees that will have us to really just reintroduce ourselves and let you know that after a relatively quiet period over the summer, we are ramping back up with the sustainability work and Phase 3. Phase 3 really is about finalizing a potential regional agreement, which would bring Hollamont and Mohawk Trail into a single district. It moves forward simultaneously a potential building project to bring all students in the Mohawk Trail and Hollamont Regional School Districts, where learning and growth is our focus and community and courage is our path. But to bring all of those students together in a single campus to provide the most efficient and broadest educational experiences that we can for our students. A couple of things have come up in our conversations with community members in the spring and in the early summer that we did want to talk with each town about. Really, there are three of them that seem to be on the top of everyone's minds. Sorry, it's WASP season. One is transportation. And if you are hearing from your community that there is a concern about a transportation, particularly for our youngest students, you are hearing correctly. There is concern amongst our community about how to transport all students in a reasonable time frame to a single campus. So phase 3 will take a hard look at transportation runs and determine ways in which we can reduce length of time, particularly for our outlier towns and our outlier students. Think Plainfield, think Hawley, Heath, Charlemont, those folks that live on the other side of a river or the other side of a mountain. Those are students and families that we need to take a particularly close look at and do some problem solving for. Another issue that has come forward that we have been thinking about, which if you hear, we are reckoning with, and that is preschool. How do we offer preschool in a meaningful capacity for all of our students that we are required to offer preschool to, but also knowing that preschool is really the key for early experiences and success in kindergarten. And so how do we make sure that our preschool programs continue to run in ways that are meaningful and impactful and efficient for our families in a single campus? So phase 3 will be taking a look at preschool programming for sure. The last big issue, which is why I'm here tonight, really is to begin to talk about what happens if we are able to have our students educated on a single campus. What happens to the buildings that could potentially be decommissioned? That is a concern that we have heard in every single focus meeting, focus group in the community that we've had. What are you going to do with the buildings? As you know, Mohawk Trail is very eclectic, and Hollamont is as well. And so when we talk about and think about how are we going to decommission buildings, each and every town, each and every school has a very unique set of context for us to deal with. So for example, Coleraine Central School is owned by Coleraine. So that's a relatively straightforward handoff or decommission right back to the town. However, there would have to be some discussion about how to distribute the capital that has been invested in recent years with Heath into the building. When we think about Hollamont is half owned by the town. The old high school portion is owned by the town, and the newer, youngest elementary wing and the gym are owned by the school district. So working with Hollamont, Charlemont, and Hawley to really disentangle that, and come up with a process that can result in an understanding of what can happen with the buildings if they are repurposed or decommissioned as educational spaces. For you, it's Buckland Shelburne. And we are asking both Buckland and Shelburne, do you have thoughts of what you might want the buildings to be used for? Do you have thoughts about a process that could be helpful in decommissioning as school buildings and then turning them back over to towns. And what we do know is that as a school district, we can't do this alone. We need some insight and some help from the community, I mean, from the towns, to really figure out what is the best way to move forward a process so that as we move toward a single campus and take some critical votes around regional agreement and capital, that people feel comfortable with the process that we've used to think about what it potentially could be happening with the schools if they are no longer school buildings. One of the things that I think Buckland Shelburne Elementary is obviously very fortunate in that it is in the village. And so it certainly has a ton of potential for either redevelopment or a lot of value. And I sit on the joint senior center visioning team. And on that team, we have representatives from the state legislature in Rep. Blaze's office. We have community health at the table. We have the Mary Lyon Foundation at the table, and the senior center, the joint senior center. And we know that all of these groups are looking for space, and they are sort of waiting to see what could potentially happen as the result of 2D8T. If we are able to move to a single campus, will there be spaces throughout the Mohawk Trail and Hollywood districts that could be repurposed for things that we know our community needs? So we know our community needs some shared space for senior center. We know that our communities need shared space for healthcare providers, dental providers, community health providers. So really just starting to have that conversation now with you folks so that we can both understand if there are any goals for the town's use of the building, and or if there's a process that you're thinking about using as we move forward with our work.
Well, I would say initially, sure, we know exactly what we want to do. We haven't a clue. From my perspective, you folks broaching the subject this early on when it's still a thought process that there may be a single campus is to your credit, and I think you've started interesting discussion on it. Preliminary things that I've heard feedback on would be what a perfect place for affordable, as they call it, housing. We are I think Andrew has mentioned before, we have, or the state has a goal of 10% for communities, and our community doesn't have any. I mean, the town doesn't own any property to do anything on. Getting to 10% is a dream, I think, for Shelburne. But that would be an option, and it's the only one I've had broached to me by residents who've brought it up. Rod, Andrew?
I've had that same discussion with people, affordable housing.
Okay.
It'd be like the perfect spot.
Yeah. Andrew, any comments?
Yeah, I have a number of questions, Cheryl. I'm glad you're bringing this forward now. And I agree with my colleagues that that housing and affordable housing is, as we know, is a huge need in all of Massachusetts and in our region as well. And you know, this site, the whole site, could represent, you know, probably Shelburne's best opportunity to develop a significant amount of housing for the first time since the 1970s, you know, which is when we built the senior housing complex. It's been a long time since we've created much housing at that scale. So I think that the ideas that you've mentioned of using it for nonprofit tenants, is certainly probably one of the easier ways to reuse the building as it is. And I guess the questions I have are, um, would the school continue to maintain ownership of the building in that model, and maintain the building in that model? Because I have doubts about whether those three entities that you mentioned could shoulder that cost, given that one of the significant reasons to relocate from BSE is that it's an older building that needs a lot of work. Which leads me to my second question, which is, if we were to consider things like housing, in addition to, nonprofit tenants, um, who would do the kind of feasibility explorations to help us determine, is that building reusable for that kind of purpose, or would the renovation costs be prohibitive, in which case it would make more sense to tear it down and start over, with perhaps using the entire site, including the fields in the back, and so all of that requires a significant amount of architectural and engineering work, and who does that? And finally, if that were to come to pass, which is, probably many, many steps down the road, how would that transfer take place from the school district to presumably to Shelburne, since the patch of land is in Shelburne? And what happens to Buckland in that process, given that we have both contributed, a lot of capital dollars to that building? So those are my big questions, And then lastly, I'm just, in regard to your opening remarks about preschool and transportation, I'm curious who owns the building in Ashfield, and what your considerations might be for, if Rowe were to join the district, keeping the Rowe Elementary open as a way to alleviate some of those distance concerns, since that is a pretty new building. That's all I got for now.
I want to take it in order. And I believe Jake is here. He's listed as Howard. Jake, are you with us?
I'm here.
Hi, can
Hey,
you
how are you?
help answer the question about what your experience has been in terms of the transition of buildings back to towns, and I mean, there's various ways that happens, but what's your experience been?
Yeah, I guess my experience is it depends on what the current ownership is. So BSE is owned by the district. Unlike Coleraine, which is owned by the town, so the relationship between the transfer of assets would be different, obviously. But I think whatever is written into the regional agreement, so a new regional agreement will be created if the new district is to form, and that regional agreement will have outlines in that talk about assets and liabilities and how the assets and liabilities are transferred. And so I think it's a non-answer answer, meaning that the transfer really is up to the school district and the towns to work out. It could be that the school district gives the building back to the town for $1 or whatever. And your question around Buckland and how you go back and look at the sort of the investments over a period of time. I guess it's, if you were to just when we were working in Southern Berkshire County, our lawyers said sort of deal with this as you would a corporate acquisition or a corporate breakup, right? One or the other, in terms of how assets are moved around. And ultimately that decision is going to happen, I think, as part of the regional agreement, that negotiation. But as you point out, some towns don't necessarily want the building because obviously there's carrying cost to maintaining it, keeping lights on, and the parking lot plowed and keeping it safe. And secondarily, figuring out what the liability is in terms of whether or not it can be renovated at a particular price point, whether it can be sold to a private entity. I live in the town of Dalton. We exited our middle school. We built a new middle school. That middle school sat on the books for about a decade. And during that decade, a private investor. So the building was given back to the town for $1. During that decade, an investor came in and offered actually to do affordable housing and market rate housing. So it was kind of split. And our town rejected it. And this was probably about maybe 5 or 6 years into the fact that it had been put on ice. And then 4 years later, we paid $1 million to demolish it. So yeah, so ultimately, I think as part of the regionalization process, we will have to negotiate how assets move and how liabilities move, right, between the towns and the district. But if it were to pass to the town, obviously, then the responsibility of what you do with it, how you act on it, I think is ultimately in your hands.
Okay. Before we go a little bit further, Cheryl, your name is there. A surprising number of people view these online after our meetings. They're published to YouTube channel. We are seeing the wrong name for the gentleman speaking. Could you tell us your full name?
Yeah, well, my name is Howard Eberwein, but I go by the nickname Jake.
Oh, okay.
So it's
the
actually
Jake thing
it's
threw me.
correct.
Okay.
And I'm the lead with Burke 12 that's been partnering. We're the consultant that's been working with the district for about 1.5 years now.
I knew that. I just wanted it on record.
Yeah. Just
my
one
only
more
other
thing I just want to
comment-
mention is we do have an informational brief on the website related to facilities that is a white paper on sort of best practices and how towns and districts repurpose facilities that have been vacated as schools. So there are some ideas there. Yeah.
Great. One other thing to make note of, Cheryl, and perhaps for Andrew, more of my 75 years on Earth, that was BCS than it was BSE. So Coleraine may have some stake in the financial split as opposed to just Shelburne and Buckland as well. So food for thought. So we have a finance committee that was asked to join us.
Rick, can I ask just
Yes.
there were two other questions. One was,
I'm so sorry. You're right. Go.
Yep.
Cheryl.
What happens if Roe joins, and the potential of that newer building? Yes, Burke 12 is working currently with Roe to consider to provide Roe with the same information that Mohawk Trail and Hollamont has had in its phase 1, which is really just to get a foundational baseline of where Roe is at right now with regard to the facilities, enrollment, staffing, and finances. So Roe would need to make a decision based on that information, whether to consider coming into the 2D 8T umbrella, which, as you know, the goal or the vote of the working group was to move toward a single campus as an aspiration, that as an inspiration, right? That the best way for us to provide the breadth of programming that we want for our students, given that our population is declining, our student enrollment is declining, and that we want to have robust programs like band and art and athletics and PE and music. That the best way to do that and to create a synergy of student body is to have a single campus pre-K through 12. That does not ignore the fact that there are some real significant concerns and there are some real significant questions that need to be answered. That is a long way around to say thinking about using Row as a school building that is in the outermost part of our 250 square miles, in my mind, is sort of antithetical to the whole purpose of what we're trying to do. And so I would say it will be part of the conversation, but we are 2 years, 2.5 years into a sustainability study that has made the decision to have an aspirational goal of a single campus.
Right.
And so we feel that as a committee, as a group of people, that is the best that we can do for our kids. And that's not without its challenges. There was a question about Ashfield and Sanderson Academy. Sanderson Academy was built by Plainfield and Ashfield. It is paid off, which is important because it means that MSBA does not have any say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, but there is
Right.
no penalty for closing Buckland Shelburne, I'm sorry, for closing or repurposing Sanderson Academy. So Sanderson Academy is owned by Plainfield and Ashfield.
Right.
Terrific. Finance Committee, would you like to weigh in? Any questions from you folks?
They always say no. I see you. I see you in there.
They've unmuted, so maybe we have a comment coming.
One of the comments I'm strictly putting on my finance committee hat is that building would, if the town were to accept that building, would come at considerable cost to the town. Considerable cost town, even to the point where you could almost use the term that it might bankrupt the town. You look at just make some estimates of what it might cost to run that building. It's very significant. You only need to look as far as Heath to see what's happened to Heath when they took over an old school building. And not even an old school building, a new school building. The divisiveness that it's caused in the town of Heath, the votes against each other in the town and so forth, and the tax rate going through the roof. You need to take those things into consideration. It's you've got a very good example right nearby of what could happen there. And then it's further complicated here because it's a Buckland Shelburne school, which happens to be in the town of Shelburne. It is just as much Buckland school as it is Shelburne school. It's not a Shelburne school. And you need to, the whole discussion of repurposing it needs to come from that perspective. It is a Buckland Shelburne school. It is not a Shelburne school, just happens to be located in the town of Shelburne. So, from the finance committee perspective, that would be my opinion on it.
Yeah, I appreciate that 100%. Thank you for that. It settles my heart that there are two towns that believe that the school is both of theirs. So thank you for that. With regard to Heath, we went to Heath last week or the week before, and you're absolutely correct. They have a lot of lessons learned, and not only in what to do with the building and the process of what to do with the building, but I think sort of bolster our approach here at getting out to talk about what to do with the building, because what they said was they spent all of their time and energy having conversations about what is the best that we can do for kids. When you start to have classes of 2 to 4 students, is that really in the best interest of students? And so they spent a majority of their time and energy having the conversation about what can we do for kids? And they didn't have the conversation about what is the realistic impact of having a closed school in your town. And they've suggested that we have this conversation and that they would be willing to be a partner with us to come out and have conversations with towns that are in a position to be repurposing or decommissioning and repurposing school buildings in their towns. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I just have one question. You mentioned a couple minutes ago that Ashfield is paid off, Sanderson Academy is. What is Buckland Shelburne? Would we have issues with the mass school building administration as well, or is it paid off? I don't even know.
I believe that there are no capital projects in the district right now. I believe that, oh, I might have misspoke. Jake, do you remember? Because we did a big capital project for safety with, we did a lot of, building safety, like,
Upgrades?
upgrades. Yeah, like, smoke detectors, like, but why am I not, like systems, like the big panels where, you know, you had to bring in new systems for 911 calls and things like that. And I honestly, off the top of my head, I'm not sure how long that capital bond was taken for, how many years that was.
I was thinking more specifically about the addition that they put on in the late 90s. Is that paid off or? Yeah.
I believe so. I think Jake is looking it up though.
Yeah, I was. I don't think you have any outstanding MSBA partnership, but you guys have borrowed money for ongoing capital investments. I think you do that on a 5-year basis.
Yep.
So I think to your point, Cheryl, I'd have to check with Robin just to make sure you haven't been part of any kind of special energy program or anything that was outstanding. But normally that probably came in as a block grant. I don't know that there's a long-term liability.
Okay, just curious.
Good question, though. We will definitely check on that.
Mm.
And then one last thing I was just thinking of, I know this is early, but it would certainly be a major consideration for both Buckland and Shelburne, but we don't know what it even costs to operate that building. Should we?
Yeah.
Should we agree to take it over?
Yeah.
We don't know what we're even looking at for the cost for the town or towns. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that would be something we would definitely want to see sooner than, you know, not at the 11th hour. Let's talk about that at 5 o'clock, you know, so we're not making hasty decisions. Let's see the data, let's mull it over and then think on it.
Yep.
Yeah, so Cheryl, you guys had bonds issued in 2016, 2020, 2022. I don't think any of those has a connection to MSBA. Those are just borrowing internal. Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Cheryl, I have a follow-up on the Finance Committee concerns about cost of maintaining and operating the building. That one thought for your group, given that the town of Shelburne might, while it might want the control and say so on future uses that would come with owning the building, that might not outweigh the concern of shouldering all of the cost of owning the building. And one thought that you might look at with your group as you're proceeding down this path is whether the school district can pursue grant opportunities or funding to do that kind of pre-development assessment, so that if all things lined up and the consolidation happened and we were looking at reusing BSC, that transfer to a developer could happen more smoothly and quickly than the scenario that you described in Dalton of the town owning the building for a decade and then paying to demolish it. You know, that would be the cautionary tale we would not want to pursue.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think there are stories where that's absolutely the case, and there's stories that, you know, the other opposite, which is when that the towns or cities took over buildings and then repurposed those buildings or sold them to private developers to do things like build housing and create commercial space. So I think Cummington School right now is being repurposed. It took a few years to get there. They closed Cummington, Central Berkshire, and now it's being reused as sort of an arts community center. And so, that would be an interesting case study again to look at. So, I think your real estate is interesting because it is tied to the downtown, and from my perspective, that offers some interesting, I don't know, opportunities / advantages that you might not see with a school in the middle of nowhere, like Heath, which there were limited options, obviously, and they obviously repurposed that into a town center, which they needed. So,
Okay.
I also just want to just one clarification on something mentioned earlier. We may be working with Roe. So we're in conversation right now. The select board has voted to move forward with a very initial study, basically to do a temperature test of the community, whether they're interested in joining the 8-town effort. But very specifically, the question they have to answer is whether they would want to join the effort and send their kids to Mohawk Trail as a single campus. We're not really looking at variations where Heath might stay open. I'm sorry, where Row might stay open or Holomite might stay open, and we have potentially a kind of a Western campus there. We're really saying to folks, the commitment you're making is to invest in the single pre-K through 12 facility campus, and that's where kids will go. And clearly, the transportation we've got to sort of work through that. Yeah.
Cheryl, any further comments? I see we have some school committee members who were invited to join us. I'll get to them, but give you another shot if you have more, Cheryl.
No, I think that's it. Thank you. Those are great questions. And we believe this is part of the process we want to continue to use. So thank you for being open to giving us a half an hour, 45 minutes of your very valuable time. Your time, like my time, is like, woof, goes before we know it. So thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for the very comprehensive update always. Willow, Maya, either of you have any questions or comments you want to make before we move on?
I don't have anything specific. I wanted to listen mostly because I've been obviously a part of the discussions throughout. I will share that I'm working very closely with Cheryl and Martha and Jake in the communication subcommittee about continuing to get this information out into our communities, into the public, feedback, getting people's thoughts. It's so vital to this whole effort. And so I just want to say thank you for listening and for having these very proactive meetings. And my goal personally is to also to continue to share updates from school committee perspective. Consider me a resource as well as one of your 2 town reps. So if there's ever any questions, thoughts, feedback you want to share, I'm just here along with Maya. And we are your reps, so we definitely want to hear from people.
Appreciate it.
Maya, if you have anything else.
I think mostly I would just echo what you're saying, Willow. It's I think I'm definitely here to listen and want to help just foster communication, talking with people in the school system. My kids are at BSC right now, so that's a lot of the people I'm talking to, but just hearing what folks in different towns are thinking about, what ideas they're having, and I'm very happy to hear about and to hear the communication between Shelburne and the district about thinking about what would building use look like after this, and were we to go forward with this, and how we can integrate that conversation with this one about the streamlining into one school. And I do think I am looking forward to ways that the towns that may be more on board are able to and the district work together to figure out how to get some of the towns that might be less ready or willing, figuring out ways to work together to bring everybody on board.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I think that covers it unless anyone else has one more afterthought. Appreciate your time. We look forward to your next visit.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Indeed. Okay. We have, we're a few minutes early for our next appointment, but I see everyone involved is here. 6:45, discussion on the old Greenfield Road guardrails. This has come to our agenda tonight at the request of Connie Clark, requesting the opportunity to got to clear up misunderstandings, which there are many of. I've seen myself the conflicting versions from different people. So before I turn the floor over to you, to Connie, to see what we can do for you, I'd like to give you a real quick update of what we know from this side, because you know what you know from your side. Here's what we know from our side. At our September 8th Select Board meeting, the Highway Department liaison report was given by Jeff, and in our minutes, which are done by Faye very diligently and have been approved, it says some guardrails will be removed on Old Greenfield Road to allow a landowner to have access for logging. Rod asked what sections of guardrails would be removed and would there be liability for the town. Jeff Johnston said the sections were marked where the landowner had requested and where Jeff felt it was safe. Board members agreed to check the area where the guardrails would be removed and discuss it at a future meeting. So that was the entire snippet of the first conversation on the subject on September 8th. At our following meeting, the minutes on there, also very accurate, reflected and approved, say Jeff said the landowner also wanted to place a place to park a vehicle on the side of the road and a place for pedestrians to get off the road. It was felt that the risk of a vehicular accident was too great. A motion was made by Andrew, seconded by Rod, that the town is not willing to remove guardrails on Old Greenfield Road as requested by a landowner. If and when logging access is needed, a request for a temporary removal of guardrails should be made. The roll call vote was unanimous. So that's 100% the entirety of the conversations that have happened in the two previous select board meetings. It doesn't seem to match exactly what you've stated in your emails to us. So we've given you the opportunity tonight to speak to that.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
I think if I had been invited to these meetings or to the session on the road, a lot would have been cleared up before you got this far. I've been having cordial and frank conversations, no demands with Jeff. I think Jeff would agree. We simply have discussed things. It was he who put the red ribbons out just as a way of remembering what we discussed. The last meeting I had with Jeff, and I think it must have been, Jeff, get me if I'm wrong, after one of these select board meetings, where we thought, well, what if the guardrail had gone to the inner edge of what has always been a pull-off, where I've always been able to park my truck. And I was not asking for major demolition of guardrail. The sections that I've discussed with Jeff, he acknowledged there are worse places on the road that haven't been guardrailed. And so the whole job looks incomplete, inconsistent, with most of it happening on my property. He was able to make improvements when he got to the Cosby section this spring. And I think one of the issues, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, you had always thought that the guardrails wouldn't be put up until the spring of 2025, and that you would seek resident feedback back. And that didn't happen because apparently the subcontractor wanted to do it at the end of 2024. So there was no chance to discuss anything. And what shocked me in getting Terry's formulaic email and the letter from Mr. LaPierre was I wasn't included. I have no intention actually of logging. My property does not lend itself to logging. We used oxen to log the where we have the house. Some young fellows came with their father's skidder a few years after that. I've owned it for 30 years, by the way. And they just left their skidder in their tools in the woods because they were so frustrated. So it's not a piece of property. It's only 30 odd acres. It's not a piece that lends itself to logging. It was more being able to leave my driveway, go down with my chainsaw. And if you like the idea of a little old lady hauling a toboggan with a chainsaw in it, that's fine. I can do that. And going down and getting, dead wood for firewood, kindling, things like that. I'm sorry if the word logging got put into play because sure, it is in my chapter 61 that might be a possible site, but everything's changed in the last few years. Logging is no longer something that one can do easily with a piece of property like this. And so I don't even think logging. And but most importantly, I feel I was shocked and dismayed and really thrown off my game to think that the three of you would come to my frontage without anybody giving me heads up so I could explain myself, so we wouldn't have had to have gotten this far, so that LaPierre wouldn't have had to write the letter that he did, which is quite frankly an exercise in futility because you dangle that the guardrails might be dismantled and replaced, but you don't say that obviously the landowner is going to pay for that and for the police detail. So it's just not it's not a point of discussion. So just let me feel sad and disappointed that I was not invited to the select board meeting that led to this letter. It's the second letter I've received from Mr. LaPierre where I feel like I've been put into a position that I didn't take. So, and actually, Mr. Baker, you know that we've all been frustrated with how poorly this project was engineered. And that's neither here nor there anymore. So I would really like to thank Jeff for what he's done, the fact that he's got a vegetative management plan in place, that he's listened to people like Cynthia Brutner, Randy Prostek, and Brian Colleran. He's taken my questions simply as questions, nothing beyond that. So, Jeff, I guess if I've said anything wrong, please correct me now, but I feel you said you didn't initiate this. So I've been left these last 2 weeks wondering which one of you select board members initiated this and didn't invite me to defend myself.
Before I give time to Jeff, I would just like to say that, number one, as chairman, it's my responsibility to sign every document that leaves town hall. You know that very well. Yeah. And I signed a letter that I was asked to draft. I didn't myself draft it. It was cumulative discussion. And it's my responsibility. So the letter is from the board, not from me. I just have to sign it. Okay. I also read for you the minutes where Jeff was quoted, and they're recorded and you can check them, where he did bring it to us and say that it was requested by you. And that's where we get into she said, he said kind of thing. And so again, all I can tell you is what I've told you is the brief amount of discussion we had on it was exactly as presented in the minutes. And it was brought to us as coming a request from you to remove these sections. We put Jeff on hold out of concerns of the liability when it was reasonable, when it was learned that the guardrail company, a vetted state business, put them in but won't take them out because they don't want new liability to say, well, the town told us to take them out and you had somebody have an accident, and if there was a guardrail there, everything would have been fine. So we can't then supersede them and say, well, the heck with them, we're just going to pull them off, let Jeff cut them back or remove some sections, and therefore put the liability on the town. I'm sure you wouldn't want that done. So we're just kind of like between a rock and a hard spot here. But Jeff, how do you explain the differences in the conversations?
Yeah, to be honest, Rick, I don't remember saying much. I may have said something about opening up some pieces for walking, or, spaces to get off, but I don't remember the entirety. And I relayed that to Connie. I really don't remember. Other than that, what Connie was, go back to what Connie said. She asked if to correct her and stuff. Our meeting when I was there with the Brian Collar in there, we were discussing and the mention of should I have contoured the guardrail with the contour of that bank where she used to park her truck. That happened after these specific meetings that were recorded in minutes to answer her question there. But to be honest, I don't remember saying it, but I may have. I mean, you have it in recording, so obviously I did. I just don't remember. And I did tell Connie I don't remember saying anything. But in hindsight, I do have to say this project has been probably one of the biggest thorns I've ever had to deal with.
I believe it.
Unfortunately, a job of this scope should have been engineered. It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, it wasn't an attack on Connie. I just felt like it was very dangerous area, there. And with a new profile road, everything goes faster. So I felt it was necessary to put that there. Not that I didn't want to put more out there. I still plan on adding in areas that I feel needed, past that. It didn't happen, with this grant money because I was piecing everything together. Everything just slowly, was going. So I didn't know how much money I was going to have left over. And at the end, we really didn't have that much. It was like 36,000. But it wasn't an attack on her. I just felt that it was just I put my child isn't old enough to drive yet, but I kind of pictured her in a situation in that windy, nasty road. And I used to drive it when I was a kid, but with that, like I said, with a new profile road, it's very slippery. It's very fast, whether it's rain or leaves or anything. And I had safety in mind, and that's all I had. If there was any, I try to be a mediator. I try to make it work for both sides. And if there was a way that we could do something, maybe make a little thing, I don't know.
We'd love to find that too. I mean,
in the end, I just want everyone to be happy because that's what we strive for.
I think that's what we're all after. And,
okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I think that's what we're all after. I mean, nobody wants to deny someone access to their property. It has to, if it's going to happen, it has to happen in a way where the town is protected. And us making an arbitrary decision to remove sections or alter sections that the installer won't do for fear of liability is a clear message, or was a clear message to the three of us, that we couldn't authorize Jeff to proceed with that. So our hands were tied at that point. So, I appreciate the mess that you stepped into, Jeff. The timing of the retirement of the last superintendent, and you're coming in, you took it on the chin for sure, with plans that weren't detailed in the normal way that you've perhaps seen them in the past. But that's all behind us. Best we can do is, how do we move forward from here? Andrew, I'll give you a second.
Well, I just want wanted to pick that up, Rick, and in the how we move forward from here suggestion list. And one idea, one, just to start off, Connie, I just want to say on behalf of myself, I'm sorry that you were not notified and invited to those meetings. That was an oversight on our part, I think, and so
Thank you.
I apologize for that. And I think I've heard pretty clearly you say tonight that we're saying on both sides that we don't want to take the guardrails down, that you're not requesting it, and we don't want to for liability reasons. But I think that given the lack of engineering on that project and some things that got missed in the sort of speed with which that guardrail project got installed at the end of the MassWorks grant, one thought that I have is that if Jeff is looking down the road, literally, at other places to do safety improvements, that one possibility would be that we could look at folding in a kind of correction of that bump out that you are requesting to have a pull-off area within the guardrail. I think that is a project that we could certainly consider and accommodate in the context of future guardrail, work that we would do along that road. So that seems like maybe that's the meeting point that we could come to.
Well, that's very promising because Jeff, I mean, I really have been grateful that Jeff has been willing to talk about it. All the snafus that have led up to my particular, where I own almost a half a mile of that south frontage, getting slammed. And he and I talked about just not taking out major sections, but tweaking the ends just to open up. I mean, there's a flat section before you get to the brook. Not the whole, you don't open up the whole thing, but you just open up a little bit of an end so that you can get down in. Not a big skidder, but just get yourself down in there. And certainly that pullout lends itself to had the guardrail company just made a swing like that. It would have, I watched people navigate that corner. I watched people get, today it was a big mobile on-site eye clinic and a big truck, and they where they feel the road is too narrow, it gets dicey. So thank you, Andrew. I think that certainly this last meeting that I had with Jeff the day Brian came was hopeful in the sense that the pull-off might be factored in. And but I'm going to reject the select board's letter. It's not operative. It's not something that I want to have in my file. If you want to send me another letter that says that we have some point of agreement here, that's fine. But you have to understand, when you're not invited to a meeting and you get an email like that and a letter like that, and you've been working hard all summer on so many projects, I lost it. And as Terry saw in my responses to her, I just simply lost it. I've never been treated that way. I've been invited to the conversation, and this didn't happen this time. And I hope you guys really think that through. I made the mistake of having a casual conversation with you, Rodney, but I shouldn't have, because you're now on the board. So I've learned my lesson. And I will, from here forth, make sure what I'm saying to Jeff. We still have the knotweed that has to be dealt with. There's just so much that I got slammed with, and excuse me for losing it, but I'm old. Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely am old.
I'm old with you, and we all feel bad that it got to the point that it did. We all just thought we were doing our job and failed to recognize how you would perceive it. I think all we can do is say we're sorry that it happened. And if there's a way to correct it, we don't know what it is, and would love to find it for you. So if Jeff has the possibility of additional guardrail work, and that vendor can look at what would correct the pullout situation, then that can possibly get done. But for us, we received a request that was said to have come from you. We acted on it and told you what we did. And so I'm so sorry that it offended you the way it did.
Okay.
Best I can say.
Well, just please, it's a small town. We all pay our taxes. We all care. We're all stewards. And just think of the other people. It's not just the three of you making decisions. It's the three of you affecting the lives of some of us. And I just want us to be a team. I don't want us to be in this adversarial position where it didn't have to be.
I agree. I think that's what we all want for sure. Any other comments, Rod, Andrew, Jeff? We good?
I'm good.
Okay. Connie, I don't know if you were on, you mentioned the knotweed still needing remediation specifically in that same area. Earlier in tonight's meeting, Andrew reported that the spraying, the second spraying has happened.
Yep, I was there.
You were there. Okay, good. I didn't know.
I was there in advance of it. We had a lecture all the way up the road so that we all knew what had to be done.
Okay.
But of course, the repairs to the Great Brook embankment has, as Jeff will acknowledge, has thrown all that section to next year because they tore it up. And knotweed is beginning to blossom down at the more western end of my property. I'm kind of jealous that it looks so good on the Cosby section, and Jeff has been talking to me how we can slowly, and we talked with Brian too, how do we slowly get a handle on this? Because the knotweed is even growing up through the pavement. I mean, it's pretty rugged stuff.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. I hope we've given you a little peace of mind. At least you've now heard both sides of how we got here. We all agree it wasn't handled the best, and we'll all try to do better going forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, we have one more item on our agenda, which is any other business, our next meeting being October 20th. And a late request, Andrew, from you to discuss the substance of the proposal for the CPA pre-application for the pothole deck engineering work.
Excuse me, Rick, it seems like Jeff may have something he wants to say.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, just briefly, we're having an issue with our loader. I believe Andrew probably touched base with that on the report. I talked to Milton Cat today, and they're recommending us send the machine to them to do a transmission and a pump synchronization and other checkups. It would cost less for us to do that than to pay $1,200 every time they come out. I just asked for an estimate because I wanted to know what we owed them now, and then I want to know what the estimated cost for that would be because it's going to be astronomical in terms of using a regular budget line. So it may possibly be another Chapter 90 draw to fix that. And then while it's gone, I'll ask if they can just give us a free loaner if it's doable.
Okay, that matches up pretty well with what you had mentioned, Andrew, correct?
Yeah. I mean, Jeff has certainly followed up on it. And do you have a sense, Jeff, of if we go that way, how long the cat will be out there?
I think when they get it, because it's there in-house, I think it would be probably a fairly quick turnaround. But if they do the tests and do the synchronization and the calibrations, if something else if it's still not working, then I'm kind of lost for words because it's only a 6-year-old machine with 2,500 hours. And it's unfortunate there was no extended warranty that would have covered a lot of this.
Are you able to transport it to them and pick up a loaner if they'll give it?
I can try to locate a lowboy trailer, and Raymond Raymond and Steve have Class A licenses, so I don't know if they would need a permit because of the oversized load. But that's something I can look into.
I'm sure you'll do the right thing.
That's
Okay.
all I had. I just wanted to add, I didn't, because I spoke with them today after I met, spoke with Andrew.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Andrew, back to any other business item that you had requested.
Yeah, I think Jeff, if you got a minute, maybe you could stay on because you might have some sense to put into the pot here on this. We're talking about the pothole overlook deck. And at the last meeting, we had a kind of procedural kerfuffle that we wound up. There was a vote to withdraw our application or pre-application to the CPA to begin the process of replacing that deck. But now that we have moved past the procedural issues, I thought it would be helpful to actually talk about the project and the deck, since I have had a chance to take a look underneath it with Steve Greenwald, who is the owner of Renaissance Builders, who's been working on our theater project. And he was kind enough to come down and take a look at it with me and give me his perspective. I have to say, I went into that thinking pretty much the same thought that Rick had, which is let's just replace the deck and be done with it. And when I looked underneath with Steve, I learned that the deck is not just a pressure treated set of under supports there, but includes a fair amount of hardware. There's a lot of steel under there as well. And when Steve looked at it, we both noticed there was quite a lot of rust on that steel. It's been there for almost 30 years and right next to the river. So we began considering what would be needed to refurbish those steel supports or evaluate them also. And that's where, he recommended instead of just laying down a new deck on the top and calling it a day, that we should probably do more of an engineering evaluation and design of a new deck. And because it's right next to the river, no matter what we do, we're probably going to need permitting. And, if we were to do that stuff in place, we'd need to shroud the deck, which would be pretty expensive. He was suggesting we could take the steel out and refurbish it in a shop. That would probably be cheaper than shrouding the deck. So those are some of the pieces of new information that I came away from that project with and resulted in my sketching out a design stage proposal rather than just a construction stage proposal. Sort of shades of old Greenfield Road there that sometimes designing is a prudent first step there if you've got a project that may be more complicated than you thought it was. But those are that's kind of what I learned from my initial foray. And clearly, Steve Greenwald and I only looked at the beginning of the support structure. We didn't, go all the way along the deck and look at the entire thing. So there's still more to be looked at. But that's kind of where we got to now. I think at our last meeting, Rick expressed significant concerns about the condition of the deck, and he seemed to think it needed replacing sooner than I did. And that's still another question that really needs some exploration is what is the replacement timeline that we might be looking at that would affect our capital planning in terms of whether we try to pay for it all in 1 year or accumulate money over several years, and sort of map it out that way. So I don't know, Rick, Jeff, if you have thoughts you want to throw into the mix there, or if you
Yes.
haven't really.
I mean, I've never looked underneath it or anything. Obviously I see the deck because we walk on it, and it's I don't even know, is it pressure treated wood or is it a cedar?
It's pressure treated.
Yeah, it's weird looking.
Because, I mean, does it have like steel posts supporting the subframe
It
of
looked
the
to me
decking?
mostly like a pressure treated substructure that's holding the deck up, and the pressure treated beams are sort of tied together with a series of metal straps.
Okay, so kind of
Yeah.
like hurricane clips, um, I don't know how long, I mean, when was the last time this decking was even touched?
It was built in 1996 with a block grant.
96, so
Yeah,
so 30 years old.
it's almost 30 years old. Yeah.
It all depends on how much money you want to spend. I mean, you can replace just like existing, would be the cheapest route, or you can go with a steel structure, kind of like a bridge beam type structure, which maybe will add on 20 years to the replacement life. And it shouldn't see that much salt. I think it's just natural water and moisture all the time because of the rocks and it's always cold. But they do have the coatings that they use on the bridge girders and stuff is real nice. But I mean, I don't know how much what we're thinking here, but it sounds pretty expensive.
So I think where a possible point of confusion is that I objected to having a qualified structural engineer view it. That's not my objection. My feeling is right this minute, there's so many screw heads sticking up out of those deck boards that it's a hazard to the public. I could barely drive through town last weekend. There were so many people here and down there. You couldn't get near the deck. I mean, it was just packed with people. There's boards that are spongy. There's boards that are split. There's boards that are sticking up, also trip hazards. It's to me, it's a glaring, obvious mess right now. It was built with like 1x4s instead of 5/4 by 6. It's
It's
bizarre.
weird looking.
It's
Yeah, that's why I was
bizarre.
wondering if it was pressure treated or cedar.
So my feeling was that on the right-hand side, as you look at the river, there's almost no distance between the carrying beams, the joists that the decking is screwed into, and the cement pad. And it lengthens over towards the old stairs that went down. To me, it makes a whole lot more sense to develop a plan where you pull up 10 feet of decking at a time, starting at the far end. You inspect it, you take pictures, you maybe even contract an engineer to be there to verify it, and you keep going. And that way, somebody's not crawling on their belly under there or guessing what the other end of it looks like, where you could do a legitimate review and call it an engineering study with somebody that knows what they're doing as the decking gets replaced. I don't think that's wasted money because it eliminates what now is a problem to me and a liability, and at the same time allows a good, clear inspection to say, ooh, this post is a 6x6, it should change while they're here. Boom, change it, keep going. And get the deck in a safe condition in a piecemeal type project where the thing isn't closed down for a month at a time, and do the study at the same time. That just made so much more sense to me than not doing that and looking for 50 grand next year to do an engineering study, which would then put it off another year when the liability and the horrible shape of the deck boards themselves exist right now. I also brought a probe and poked between the boards to every joist in 50 places. I couldn't find a soft spot anywhere. I think that the 2x6s, 2x10s, 12s, whatever they are, I think they're solid. What's under them, we don't know. But you don't know until you pull up the boards. And when you do, okay, put new boards back down. It just seemed too logical to me to not do that and put it off, as I said, for a year to even get the money to do a study. So That's where we were at. It's not that I object to having somebody know what they're doing and have a plan, but I believe, Andrew, your comments last week or 2 weeks ago were it may be 10 years before that steel is an issue. Well, we got an issue right now that could be addressed as part of looking at really what's going to be involved for the underpinnings section. So that's my 2 cents.
Now, do you have to pull a permit for maintenance? Like it would, I mean, well, I can ask Jim.
Ask Jim.
I got to see Jim Wednesday, so I can ask him. I mean, that's not a bad idea at all, because to me, it's a preventable type thing where decking material, I mean, and you can look at it as a consumable product, but if you're putting it down with screws, you can very easily remove after the fact. And like you said, as you do it, whatever your span width is, if you want to go 10 feet or if you want to go 20 feet, you do that, and then you can get an idea what you need to replace.
I also found it interesting that as I looked at that and all these screws that are popping up, they look like sheetrock screws to me. They're Phillips head. I've never seen a Phillips head deck screw. Maybe there were 100 years ago. I don't know.
I mean, they had some at the shop, but I told them they were using such things. And I said, why don't you use galvanized dip decking screws? That's what they're made for.
Yeah.
With the Torx heads. And
so I would like to see this move forward and have a good plan, but I think we've addressed it as far as we should under any other business. I think you guys have given me good input. But
Well, Rick, I guess the only thing I say is, as I hear you describe this piecemeal kind of fix it as you go approach to repairing the deck, I don't hear a way of addressing the steel under supports of that or evaluating them. And
why can't that be done? Why can't we have someone evaluate that as we go?
Well, because if you evaluate it and you say, well, yeah, you need to take the rust off that or repaint them or whatever it might be, then you're in the midst of a whole project that is different than just slapping another deck down there.
Exactly.
And that's why I thought Steve Greenwald's advice about doing an engineering plan before you start, in on that process. I don't even know how you would bid somebody to come in and do the kind of work that you're describing. If I was a contractor, I'm not sure I would take that on, it just sounds so squishy, and like, maybe this will happen, maybe that will happen, but if you have an engineering plan, then you have specs and a plan that you go out to bid with,
for $200,000 to $300,000, and we don't know that that's
right, but Rick, the thing is that doing it the way you described isn't going to happen before next year anyway.
Without finding some funding, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying, and we've just voted down some funding that we had in hand.
What do you mean? What funding do you have in hand?
The CPA funding that's sitting there eligible to be used. That was the purpose for which I sadly, went ahead on the basis of our conversation to explore just the eligibility question. Is this project eligible for CPA funding? We got the answer back, yes, it's eligible. That was
doesn't
really
mean we have it though, Andrew. It's
no, but that was the only thing that we were really the only question we were trying to answer in that first one paragraph pre-application is, if we were to go forward with this, is it eligible for CPA funding? And if the answer is yes, then we have the prospect of saving the taxpayers 50% of the bill. That's what I was up to in trying to meet that deadline, was to save the taxpayers 50% of the cost.
I think it would have been helpful if we had time to obviously discuss it in advance and bring in other experts to look at it. We had one person take a peek and say, you might want to spend 50 grand to get an engineering study. Well, that's good advice, but I'd like at least 3 people to tell me that, and so on. It was just felt so rushed. But Rod, you haven't made a comment. Do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm thinking like you. I myself would even like to go down and take a peek at underneath. I mean, they do bridges all the time. They make a fantastic vacuum system when they do scaling of rust, and they can contain it so easy. But I would definitely like to look at it before I made the slightest decision on it.
Okay, so let's kick this can down the road at least to our next meeting. I don't think we have any fruit to be harvested on this discussion under any other business. I'm not trying to squash it. I'm just trying to say, right now, we haven't done the due diligence of looking at the options that are available to figure out what or if makes sense for a direction to begin. But
Well, the only suggestion I have in that regard, Rick, is that the pre-application sketch that I put out there would give you that possibility to do that due diligence. It's not, and my sense of and this is a matter that we have to take up with the CPC, but my sense is that those pre-applications are not carved in stone. They're just a sketch to say, if we did this, is it eligible? And then they say, okay, yeah, that sounds eligible. Give us a full proposal that we can really evaluate. That gives us another couple of months to do some diligence and look around, talk to other people, and put together a full application based on what we find, or not, or just say, no, this doesn't make any sense at all. Let's not put it in an application. But that's the process of due diligence that I was starting down the road with. And one possibility, I don't know if it's a real possibility or not, is that the CPC did not get many applications this year. So there is a possibility that they might reconsider our proposal that we rescinded on procedural grounds. Now that we have rescinded it and we can go forward with a motion, maybe we can put it forward again and say, can we put this engineering exploration into the mix again? Because that it is designed to do what you're asking to do, which is to get more information.
It would delay eliminating the liability of a horrible condition of deck boards that Rod and I could knock off in a weekend, for goodness sakes. It's not a major project to swap those out, and it kicks that can down a year out to the town meeting, let the town voters vote on it, and then try and look at $50,000 study 6, 8, 10 months later. It's now you're 2 years down the road before we start to address a problem that's in front of us immediately. But we're getting repetitive now.
Rick, I think you're talking about 2 different projects. If you're talking about a project you and Rod could do in a weekend, that's a maintenance project that we could either assign to the highway department or find a contractor to do. But that's, screwing down some boards and replacing some punky boards is not the same as evaluating the entire deck and its lifespan and saying, when should we budget the money to replace this thing?
All I'm saying is, during the replacement of every single deck board that's there, not just a few, you have the opportunity for an engineer to actually stand there, right there, touch it as it's opened up, to make those evaluations. And it certainly would be more comprehensive than trying to do it in place. So it still makes sense to me the way I suggest it. But I think we beat that horse to death for this evening. I'm willing to discuss it again, but I don't think we're getting anywhere further tonight.
It sounds like you don't, I mean, I'm hearing a disjunct between your sense of urgency and your desire to kick this down the road.
Okay, let's take a vote tonight. Let's have somebody go vote, or take a vote to go out and find somebody to replace the deck boards. And in the interim, we'll find somebody to check the engineering, structural engineering of it as it's done. You know, it's crazy, Andrew. You just, everything's in a hurry up action, and it's uncomfortable when more consideration can be given it. For me, just
Well,
my personality.
You take your consideration, and maybe you and Rod can go and fix the deck, but it's your project now.
Okay. Any other comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So
I make a motion, we adjourn?
second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Andrew?
Aye.
Rod?
Aye.
I am I. Thank you all. Appreciate it. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Have a good evening.
You too.